My name is Jennifer McGregor, and I'm the Executive Director of the Lake Forest Preservation Foundation. And guess what? It's 2026, and tonight is our first program of the year. We're kicking off our 50th anniversary with a whole myriad of lots of activities, and we wanted to just share a few of them with you tonight, just so you can keep an eye on your mailboxes for your newsletter. We also know that we're really excited about the city sticker that has acknowledgement of our 50th and Ragdale's on that beautiful work of art. But mark your calendars for our annual meeting for members. And for those of you who've won a preservation award, we're welcoming all of you to a block of Bank Lane that we're shutting down for lots of fun on May 3rd. We also are having our 50th soiree, our black and white cocktail party at Glen Rowan on June 26th, which will be emceed by Bill Curtis. The 50th anniversary exhibit at the History Center, opening on August 20th, will run for 3 weeks. And then our Preservation Symposium, the weekend of October 16th, which we'll have partially at Ragdale. We have one of our panels that will be moderated by Jeffrey Baer, so that's also exciting. And we have other fundraiser dinners similar to what we did last year. We had those hosted for curated groups of 50, and this year we'll have them in May, September, and hopefully November. We're waiting for the third location. So we thank all of you for being here. We wanted to also acknowledge, and we have several of our sponsors here tonight, but wanted to thank our current 50th anniversary sponsors, and obviously welcome new contributors as we expand our efforts. So Blue Pine, Craig Bergman Landscape Design, Susie Horner Design Collective, Price Insurance, Smith's Men's Store, Pennies from Heaven, Valentina, the studio at Westmoreland Farm, Edward Deegan Architects and Interiors, and Jenny Brown Designs. So thank all of you for your contributions so far. So on with the program. It's been a year since the enormity of devastation caused by the wildfires in California in January of 2025, impacting over 40,000 acres, 12,000 homes, displacing 200,000 people. Altadena was the hardest hit community, with the Eaton Fire specifically damaging 5,700 lots. This is the largest wildfire mission that the Corps of Engineers has ever undertaken. We were all watching as the news unfolded over the days and weeks while architects Alex Athenson and Cynthia Sigler, our speakers tonight, watched their neighbors' homes burn in the Eaton Fire. Alex and Cynthia are both licensed architects and co-founders of the Foothill Catalog Foundation and have traveled here from Pasadena to join us today, and we're especially pleased to welcome Alex home, a seventh generation Lake Forest native. That's crazy. Who it turns out took his first architectural classes at Lake Forest High School. And urban legend has it that he really got that curiosity of architecture from looking at some of these plans that were on your kitchen table because your mom was reviewing things for the Plan Commission and BRB, and as a young boy really sparked that curiosity. So I loved hearing about that. So we're grateful also to Notre Dame for allowing them to meet at architecture school, but for the sensitive training they received that will forever guide their work. Together, Cynthia and Alex have broad experience working on architecture and urban design projects around the world and bring a shared commitment to regionally sensitive, traditionally grounded design with a passion in expanding equitable access to high-quality architecture. Through their nonprofit, the Foothill Catalog Foundation, they're advancing innovative frameworks that support resilient communities and thoughtful stewardship of the built environment in the wake of the 2025 Los Angeles wildfires. Together, we'll hear more about their innovative approach to preserving and reestablishing historic neighborhoods and how vintage kit home catalogs from the early 1920s, once a practical home building tool, can be reimagined to help restore architectural heritage and support the return of lifetime residents to this devastated community. Lake Forest has a meaningful local connection to this effort. Our community features an abundance of early 20th century kit homes, particularly in the West Park and South Park neighborhoods, making this story especially resonant, and especially in light of the Foundation's future efforts to create a new West Park Historic District. More on that to follow. Tonight is a special program we bring to Lake Forest, not only to celebrate the achievements of one of our own, but to reflect upon the fabric of our communities and what weaves us together. Being intentional to create a sense of history and permanence and peace to rebuild and restore and reestablish the beauty, providing a sense of home and belonging together. That's what it's all about. Welcome, Cynthia and Alex.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. All right, we have to live up to that introduction now. All right, well, yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you to the Lake Forest Preservation Foundation for having us and for the opportunity to share what we've launched with the Foothill Catalog Foundation out in Los Angeles. So we've been traveling a lot to share with audiences around the country what we're doing, but I gotta say, you can't beat the accommodations here in Lake Forest, which is my childhood bedroom. So room and board is never a worry. What we're talking about today is preservation after disaster. So it's a little bit of a different presentation. It's the goal is to looking at how preservation as an idea and as a movement encompasses many aspects of what it means to value our heritage, value our identity, and what it means to be a place and what it means to be a community. So let's see. All right, that works. So it's about preserving valuable, iconic architecture in the most traditional sense. But it's also about preserving identity and preserving our cultural heritage as well. And what it means to be a community, what it means to be a country, and what it means to be human. So these are the tenets that I know on which the Lake Forest Preservation Foundation was founded, and how preservation movements across the country similarly work, fighting to protect and retain what makes a place a home. So that question that Southern Californians had to ask themselves on January 8th, 2025 was, how do we preserve community identity when your home is completely destroyed? How can your neighborhood effectively represent the history of its inhabitants when entire blocks are gone? And how do we preserve cultural heritage, architectural identity, sense of place, when an entire town, entire history, an entire culture has been physically destroyed? So these are the origins of the Foothill Catalog Foundation.
Now, over the next 40 minutes or so, Alex and I will speak a bit about how this nonprofit organization came to be and the larger issues that we're also trying to address. So the first, of course, is preservation, fighting to retain the diversity of the people and retain the diversity of this place, specifically in two historic Los Angeles communities, the Pacific Palisades and our home of Altadena in Pasadena. But also our goal is to enable housing development and at an extraordinary scale while maintaining a high standard of quality, specifically in design, but also in construction as well. So Los Angeles has now become the epicenter to two national crises, which is the acceleration of natural disaster displacement along with the rapidly rising floor of housing affordability. So I'm sure we're all aware the rise in natural disasters over the past several years. It's estimated now that 1 in 70 individuals are displaced by natural disasters each year in the country. And so this compounds an already existing housing crisis and lack of affordable housing. An estimated 3 in 4 U.S. families are not able to afford the median priced home. So while this is very much a local need for us currently, it's also, our story and our mission also extends beyond Southern California as our country battles to preserve regional identity and cultural heritage while meeting the immense need to keep building so that 100 years from now we can have similar conversations that places and buildings built in 2026 are still worth preserving and saving and worth loving. So
with that context, we can start by introducing ourselves a bit more. Jennifer gave an awesome start. This is me. I'm born and raised in Lake Forest, Illinois, and also my brother Nick on the right, so shout out to Nick. I was born and raised in Lake Forest, grew up on Summit Avenue in the historic West Park neighborhood. And I think I have a picture of the home at 901 Summit Avenue, so where I am staying tonight. So I was class of 2012 from Lake Forest High School. Took CAD architecture classes there, and then actually went on to University of Chicago and got a degree in economics. And then made my way back to architecture. Got my master's in 2020 from the University of Notre Dame, but more importantly, met Cynthia there. And then in 2021, relocated to Pasadena, California, to work in architecture and urban design. But I think as Jennifer even mentioned, as my mom spread rumors about the origins of my architecture passion, it really came from this really rich history that is Lake Forest, and growing up in a place that has such amazing diversity of style, diversity of typology, and diversity of people. So the West Park neighborhood is such a great example of that diversity, and I'll touch more about on the history of that neighborhood in particular a little bit later in the presentation. But this really rare architectural quality that we all get to cherish in this community is something that really built in me a love for the built environment, a love for architecture, and a passion to try and do it myself.
Okay, and I didn't choose this photo, by the way. I'm a bit of an opposite, I would say. I was born in Japan and raised mostly in Honolulu. But I really had a bit of a nomadic childhood. We moved around a lot growing up. But I finished my middle school and high school years in Honolulu, and then found myself in South Bend, Indiana, at Notre Dame, where I studied architecture. After graduating, I started my career in architecture in Chicago with a firm called HKS, which I was with them for a while, actually up until last November, when I officially joined the Foothill Catalog. But yes, and relocated to Pasadena in 2021. But growing up kind of all over the place, it really allowed me to, experience different places from a young age and really recognize the importance of our built environment and how so often the built environment does really shape the identity of a place. And so this is kind of where we started with the Foothill Catalog. So classically trained California, both licensed in California, architects living and working in Pasadena, and kind of working in a wide variety of project types leading up to the fires. So a little bit of the kind of local context of which we're working in. So we're of course in Southern California in Los Angeles. Just north of downtown Los Angeles is where Pasadena and Altadena is, at the foothill of the San Gabriel Mountains. So kind of zooming in even more, Pasadena of course is well known, a lot of to do with the Rose Parade and the Rose Bowl, but Altadena is a little less known, much more kind of quieter, northern sister city, if you will, of Pasadena. So some really well-known landmarks in Pasadena: the Rose Bowl, of course, the Pasadena City Hall, some really exceptional examples of craftsman architecture, like the Gamble House, designed by Green and Green architects. But Pasadena, or for Altadena, just a little bit north of Pasadena, is another historic community that has its own identity and character. It's historically very significant from an architectural standpoint, but also actually from a demographic standpoint. There is a exceptionally high average of Black and brown home ownership in Altadena, a lot to do with the history of redlining in Pasadena. And so it's a very welcoming, inclusive, wonderful neighborhood that has very, very deep roots, a lot of families, multi-generational families and homes that are passed down through family members. And some of the architectural landmarks in Altadena, very well known, just like in Pasadena, but for example, the McNally House on the right here, unfortunately, lost to the fires, but a lot of really historic homes. But also, not just in the large estates, but that kind of exceptional architecture is reflected in the small kind of vernacular as well, the everyday homes. And so really kind of proving that, the 3,000 square foot green home and the 8,000 square foot or 800 square foot craftsman bungalow are both wonderful places to live and can also coexist side by side as well. And then that diversity of architecture is reflected back in the people and the diversity and eclecticism of the people that call this place home. And so January 7th brought a unprecedented scale of damage and destruction to our doorsteps. As was mentioned earlier, in Altadena alone, 6,000 single-family residences were completely destroyed. And so now we're faced with the challenge of how do we bring this back and come back in a way that is, respectful and honors the original strong community that was already there to begin with.
And so Cynthia and I, as architects, but also as members of this community, we're right in the middle of this disaster on January 7th. So this is our home on Montana Street, which is a half block south of the Altadena border. And it's been great for us living there over the past 5 years, really feeling like we have a foot in both communities. And this home did not look like this when we bought it in 2021. It was probably the spookiest home in Pasadena. There were actually no windows. That front door wasn't there. I don't know where they had put the front door. But so Cynthia and I, being kind of go-getters moving out west, bought this home for the most we could afford and had to fix it up ourselves. So the process of making a house into a home, we really accelerated that journey together, drywall screw by drywall screw, and putting in our own cabinets and making this house a home for us and our family of two. Even though we've only been there for 5 years, we sank our roots really deep into Pasadena, into Altadena, and have sort of this shared memory now of what this home represents for our life. So when the Eaton fires on January 7th came, that moment and that feeling of the potential of losing a home was very real for us too. So the night of January 7th, we were, like everyone else in the area, looking outside our kitchen window and seeing the beautiful San Gabriel Mountains fully engulfed in flame. And so this was even just an hour after the first sparks were reported. So it was, and being from the Midwest, I know there's incredible windstorms out there. The Santa Ana winds about yearly, but I had never seen or experienced winds like that before. Category 2 force hurricane winds, but instead of winds of water, they were winds of fire. So the fire was spreading incredibly quickly that night, and we evacuated pretty quickly the night of January 7th to a friend's place in the San Fernando Valley, and woke up on the morning of Wednesday, January 8th, to find that the fire had leapt incredibly quickly from the northeast corner of Altadena all the way to the northwest corner, across the entire town, consuming thousands of residents and to within a mile of our own home. And so if you all remember, even that day, all of the fires going all over Los Angeles, and the news coverage cutting back and forth between all the different fires. We were watching that too, just on our friend's air mattress in their living room, to the point where on one of these cutaways, as the fire was creeping closer and closer to our door, the coverage cut to Altadena, and there was a reporter standing on Montana Street, on our street, with 4 homes fully engulfed in flame behind her. So at that point, we turned off the TV. We knew that block, we knew those homes, and we knew those families who lived there. And so at that point, we were pretty resolute that our home was not going to survive the next 24 hours. So I remember taking kind of a lonely, quiet walk around Valley Village together with Cynthia, trying to come to the grips with the fact of all this kind of sense of place, this home that we had built in a very short time was really, we had to face the reality that it might all be gone. So a couple hours later, we had a friend who was driving around the community and was checking on his family's home, and his aunt and uncle's beautiful craftsman home in Pasadena thankfully survived. His in-laws' home up in northern Altadena, his in-laws had lived there for 40 years in a modest craftsman kit home, and it completely burned to the ground with the rest of the blocks. He went by our home to check it out too, and that was the first image, which was actually this photo of that our home still standing. So with the sun kind of blotting through the ash and the smoke, and the winds having pretty much ripped up almost most of our landscaping, but still standing. So we were incredibly fortunate that over the next few hours, the winds had shifted, and we ended up being about a block away from the edge of where the Eaton fire ended. But we were incredibly fortunate, and then watching the rest of the news coverage, realized that while us and our immediate block had been spared, 6,000 residential structures, 10,000 structures in our own community were just completely gone. And so this is sort of the map of what the damage was throughout Altadena. And so the red represents the homes that were completely destroyed. The other colors represent the gradient of destruction. And the black dots that you see there represent the fatalities in Altadena. So in this white dot over by the legend, that is where Cynthia and my home was. So right at the corner and right at the edge of kind of the burn zone. So this was the context of now still being evacuated, still trying to figure out when we could get back home. But also as architects and knowing what this building process would be and how difficult it is to build anything, especially in 2026 and especially in California, especially in Los Angeles, and knowing the diversity of the people, how special this place really is, how difficult it was going to be for all of these families, these thousands of diverse families of means, backgrounds, ethnicities, to be able to access and navigate through this complex process of building or rebuilding. That was what Cynthia and I figured we needed to try and solve.
Yeah, so, that kind of Alex talking about that day and that kind of experience brought back a memory of actually logging into my home insurance account for like the first time since we had purchased the home, and downloading my insurance policy and like actually reading it for, in detail for the first time. And that was not an uncommon experience. That was what everyone was doing that day, because it was, when we left our house on the 7th, we all thought we would come back. And thankfully we were able to, but there are just so many people that weren't. And so Alex touched on this, but, as architects who routinely work in the permitting process and the design and build process, and then also as homeowners who have gone through a pretty extensive renovation, not a ground up, just a renovation, but still going through that process and working with the permitting office, we knew how difficult it was, and that there was going to be so many hurdles for people to overcome, and just layering on the fact that the scale of what had happened with 6,000 plus people trying to navigate all of this at the same time, there needed to be alternate solutions, right? We needed to figure out an alternate mechanism to help people, especially the people who may be under-resourced and most likely have actually been in the community the longest, because again, their home was probably passed down to them from their parents and their grandparents. And so, going back to the two pillars that we discussed earlier, retaining the people and retaining the place, how can we work to streamline this rebuilding process to minimize the time and the cost to build, and also eliminate the knowledge burden for people who never imagined that they would ever be in this situation. And then at the same time, how do we ensure that what we're building back honors the place that used to be there? And so that's kind of the founding impetus of the Foothill Catalog Foundation. And so the Foothill Catalog Foundation is a nonprofit organization. Its mission is to design a collection of pre-approved home designs for displaced residents to affordably and resiliently rebuild while collectively retaining our local architectural character.
And so, as we touched on before, this catalog model, or this approach to building, is in fact not new at all, but is actually one of the most successful examples of mass affordable housing development in our country's history, which is the catalog home model, and popularized at first by Sears, Roebuck and Company 118 years ago in 1906. And I actually gave a TED talk about this, the history of this too, so I'll plug that here if anyone of you guys want to take a look. But I wanted to touch briefly on the origins of this idea back in 1906, when Sears Roebuck was the leading retail company in the country, a real corporate giant. And the company was famous for the extensive Sears catalog, where Americans could buy just about anything, from tools, clothing, live animals, you name it. However, one area of the catalog was underperforming. It was building materials. Business was down, and local manager here in Chicago, Frank Kuschel, was tasked with figuring out how to improve sales. So Frank's solution was to package all of these disparate building materials into full collections, or kits, that contained every single item necessary to build an entire home. This simple idea captivated Richard Sears and not only transformed his company, but would end up changing the world. The kit home, or more commonly known as the catalog home, was then born. And so Sears began selling complete homes out of their famous catalog in a wide variety of sizes and recognizable local styles, calling them Sears Modern Homes. Each of the Sears home designs included a complete set of professionally designed architectural and structural plans, and Americans could also purchase the full kit of required building materials to construct the entire home from start to finish, with pre-cut timber, identified components, and detailed instructions for assembly. Essentially a 20th century IKEA, but for homes. So many other companies across the country launched similar catalog programs following the success of this model. There was Aladdin Company, Sterling Homes, and actually most famous in Los Angeles was a catalog called Pacific Ready Cut Homes. So over the course of the 20th century, catalog homes made quality, affordable housing attainable for working class families, providing people from coast to coast the ability to build equity on their property and ultimately to build the American dream. So now in Los Angeles, 120 years after Frank Kuschel's big idea, and after one of the worst natural disasters in our nation's history, the Foothill Catalog Foundation was launched in an effort to channel the spirit of this program to again make quality, affordable housing possible for families who have just lost everything. And so that's exactly what we've done with the Foothill Catalog. This is what this is meant to be, a 21st century catalog of homes specifically designed for the people and place of Los Angeles, and specifically looking at Altadena, looking at the Pacific Palisades, channeling the history and the spirit and the identity of these places, but also building for the lots and the people that called these homes, these places home for generations. The diversity, as Cynthia said, of the people is reflected in this diversity of place. So creating a catalog that mimics this diversity and beyond architectural style and typology and configuration, that really allows as many families as possible to have options that meet the existing character of what their home was and why they loved living there in the first place, both in Altadena and now in the Pacific Palisades as well.
So a little bit about our journey as an organization. So as you heard earlier, the impetus of the organization was January 7th with the Eaton fire. We officially incorporated as a nonprofit organization on January 15th, 2025, which was 1 week after the fire. We both felt that it was really important from the beginning that this was a not-for-profit resource for the community, and so that was one of the first decisions that we made. Also, in part because we have a nonprofit lawyer in the family who is here today. That was a huge help for sure. And so that was really the start. And about a month later, we really started kind of grassroots, just talking to people and getting the idea out there. About a month later, we had our first kind of highlight in the LA Times, really around the idea of the catalog home and could it come back? Could it be something that can help people in this situation? And around the same time, we started having weekly meetings with our local permitting authority, which is LA County in Altadena. So we met with them weekly to really talk about the nuts and bolts of this permitting program, which didn't exist prior to the fires and prior to having these workshops, but really talking about what kind of permitting process can really allow a catalog model to exist and to really work. And so from there, the Standard Plan Pre-Approval Program was born and was officially launched on April 26th, 2025. And then by June 17th, 2025, we had our first pre-approved plan, officially pre-approved by LA County. We called it the Lewis, after the home that Alex mentioned earlier of one of our family friends' family homes had burned down of 40 years, and it was on a street called Lewis Ave. And so that's why this one is called the Lewis. But this was the very first pre-approved plan in LA County history. And actually the same model that's currently being built and almost complete. The family should be moving in hopefully next month.
So I'll get a little bit into the permitting process, not too much, but in 1926, with the Sears catalog home, you would pick a home you would find out of the catalog that you liked, that would fit your lot, meet the vision of your family, and order it out of the catalog, and then either build it yourself or just get a bunch of neighbors to help build it with you or your local contractor. So in 2026 in Los Angeles, it could not be more complicated, more farther from that process of how to actually design, permit, and build really even the smallest structure. So as architects who have been working and living in Los Angeles before, Cynthia and I knew this all too well, and the frustrations of working through the bureaucracy and the regulation, for better or for worse, makes California an incredibly difficult place to build. So what we envisioned, again, to make we needed a mechanism, a regulatory, a permitting mechanism to make catalog homes possible again, specifically in Los Angeles. And these conversations with LA County, to their credit, the Los Angeles County permitting departments, Public Works, Building and Safety, Regional Planning, were all incredibly enthusiastic and passionate about trying to find creative, innovative solutions for how we could do things differently post-fire. And so really what I advocated for to the county was exactly kind of how the pre-approval plan was born. Pretty simply separating plan check, review, and approval of building-specific components versus your site-specific components. So what we do internally as a nonprofit is do a full set of construction documents, full architecture drawings, full structural drawings, calculations, energy calculations, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, drawings and diagrams, everything that it takes to build and permit a home in LA County except for a site plan. So we'll submit that to the county and get that pre-approved and then publish that in the Foothill Catalog as an option for a pre-approved option for families to choose to rebuild based on their lot and their budget. And then the only step to pick a pre-approved plan and actually get a permit, a ready-to-issue permit to build, is that single-page site plan that you submit to the county. And in a process that would take 9 to 12 plus months, we are now getting that down to 2 to 4 weeks in order to get people back rebuilding. So, and comparing that with the typical process, I mean, I kind of estimated single-family home construction in the 21st century is really geared and aimed towards the top 1% of income earners. You not only need an incredible amount of resources, but an incredible amount of time, an incredible amount of patience, and just bandwidth to be able to manage this long, arduous process of building a home from the ground up. And it's a lot of time, a lot of money in design and in permitting, and then also in construction, and a really unpredictable, non-linear process that on January 8th, Cynthia and I knew was not a process that is going to be accessible or possible for most families to go through. So how the catalog model really takes this same process of building, but is able to shorten these timelines and add an incredible sense of clarity and predictability to the process, allows for not only homeowners to save time and money, but also gives them a massive head start through this journey of what a rebuild will look like, and removes an incredible burden, emotional and psychological burden off of their shoulders after going through one of the most traumatic events in their life. And for contractors and builders and our partners that we're working with as well, this clarity in construction and this predictability that is part of what makes a catalog standard plan approach to building so attractive is it allows for predictability and to scale and repeat and to be able to save time and money in order to make the dollar and our effort go further. So we've been seeing what is typically a $650 a square foot floor for what it costs to build a single family home in LA. We're getting that down to the $450 a square foot. So, the architectural process is a small piece of the puzzle of what it takes to rebuild a home. But through the clarity of this program, it's able to unlock efficiencies and predictabilities at every stage of the process.
Yeah, and for the, kind of talking about how these designs came to be in the first place, from the very beginning, the absolute core of the Foothill Catalog has been our relationship with our community and local engagement. So we didn't want to be, these architects kind of coming in and saying that we think this is how you should rebuild. It was really from the beginning meant to be this conversation with the community, with our neighbors, and asking them, what would you like to see in this resource that we're working to build for you. And so in line with that, our nonprofit partners in the community have been instrumental to our growth. Namely, here in the middle, very early on, we partnered with our local Habitat for Humanity chapter, which is San Gabriel Valley. And we actually developed the first 3 catalog homes that you see here in partnership with them. And in the photo here, you can see the family on the left is the Wood family. They're 3 generations of Altadenians. Unfortunately, lost all 3 homes in the family, and the first, the couple that you see here, Ken and Carol Wood, is going to be moving into their newly constructed home next month, which I mentioned earlier. And then the actual design process itself, I'm really opening up our doors to the community. We hosted many events in 2025 and continue to do so, where we really invite people to come and see these designs while they're in the early stages, and get feedback from them, and ask them how they feel about things, what would they like to see, and that really directly impacts the revisions that we make, the new designs that come out of the Foothill Catalog moving forward. And then kind of taking that bottom-up approach and pairing it with a top-down support. So working with our local government, working with LA County, with LA City, with the governor's office and the state, and then leveraging some national platforms like Good Morning America, Architectural Digest, to really help get the word out and build support from a top-down aspect as well.
And so, as Cynthia said, what we were trying to do was to build this catalog of homes that reflected the architectural heritage of the place, much of which that had been destroyed, but that people still internalized of being of Altadena and being specific to Altadena. And so, when you ask anyone in Altadena kind of what the architectural identity is, it really is this diversity. It's this difference and this wide mix of different styles and typologies that matches in harmony within any given neighborhood. So that's your California craftsman home that's iconic throughout the region. That's your Spanish Mission revival, your colonial revival styles. Other revival styles even that you'll see in Lake Forest in the Midwest here, like your Tudor, your Norman, your colonial. And then big post-war development too in Altadena and Los Angeles, looking at your California ranch, your minimalist traditional, your even mid-century modern. All of these styles and languages and aesthetics really fit together in harmony in a variety of different sizes and a variety of different lot configurations and neighborhoods. So I think what we're proudest of is really the eclectic mix of what this catalog represents to meet the needs of the place and also the needs of the people we're trying to serve. And then similarly in the Palisades too, we've working with the city of Los Angeles as well as the Los Angeles County, and working with Mayor Bass's office to develop a similar pre-approved plan program in Los Angeles City proper, which is the authority having jurisdiction in the Pacific Palisades. And so, I describe working with the city of Los Angeles as like turning an aircraft carrier and trying to get things moving. We launched the pre-approval program in LA County, as Cynthia said, on the April 26th, 2025, and pre-approved our first plan in June 17th. We launched the pre-approval program with the city of Los Angeles, I believe in the fall, like October of 2025, and just pre-approved our first 5 plans about a month ago. So that's it's still incredibly quick, but it's that's sort of the difference of the scale and kind of the bureaucracy even that we're working within. But again, the goal is the same, to create a regionally specific catalog that's representative of the people and the place and the need of which we're trying to serve.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier how important the community's input was in shaping the designs, but really what we began with was numerical data. And so what this graph shows is in the green curve shows in Altadena the home sizes compared to the number of homes destroyed, and then similarly the blue curve is the Palisades. And so you can see, for example, in Altadena in the green curve, really the top of that bell curve is the 1,200 to 1,500 square foot home. And that's where we started. We looked at that data and we kind of recognized that that's where the highest need was, and then now we're kind of working our way out. But it's always been informed by data, by what we can glean from the county and the city, and then of course from the community's input as well. And so all this work and research and study and production is all in the name of retaining this place. And the name of preservation. So places all across the country, like Altadena, are diverse, eclectic, and feature a variety of scales, styles, and typologies. All right.
Yeah, and so coming back to Lake Forest, we realized this same diversity is very much the ingredient to give this town its distinctive identity as well. We have our large landmarks, our estates, and architectural masterpieces that are very much a part of this community's history. But just as much, we have a huge part of Lake Forest history and identity is defined in the modest vernacular of our neighborhoods. Not architectural masterpieces or sprawling estates, and in many cases being builder houses or kit homes, but those individual parts aggregate into a neighborhood and into a community that is just as essential to be preserving. So bring it back to the West Park community where I grew up. This modest excellence in the homes and streets was defined by builder and kit homes that made quality housing accessible to middle-class families. And leaning a lot on the incredible Architectural Lake Forest guidebook by Art Miller. So thank you, Art, for putting that together. And I'll quote even some of the passages here directly. But the spirit of the catalog home is alive and well in Lake Forest today. The West Park neighborhood represents a really interesting place and time in Lake Forest development and showcases a diverse mix of varied vernacular from even the 19th century to today, representative of the different people and families who've moved through Lake Forest over the decades. West Park itself was designed in tandem with smaller surrounding lots around the turn of the century. And the houses built on these lots were Atteridge-related Griffiths Brothers builder homes, many four squares, among the last a colonial revival dwelling from mail order plans for Betty Griffiths at 883 North Summit Avenue, so right down the street from me. So each of the streets in this district has its own unique character. The northwest corner on Atteridge, close to Green Bay Road, has several architect-designed houses by Anderson Tickner and Jerome Kearney, but these are not the norm in the district, as the working catalog home proved its value in creating one of Lake Forest's most beloved neighborhoods. So this varied scale of housing and of heritage creates this environment that is extremely regionally specific and gives Lake Forest its own unique flavor and identity. Loss of any part of this heritage, both at scales large and small, weakens this sense of place, this identity, and ultimately reduces the cultural value that makes Lake Forest truly special. So when we assess holistically the architectural vernacular of Lake Forest, we realize what defines Lake Forest, like so many other communities, is this diverse character. That is all equally worth protecting, from the attainable, repeatable housing for working class families we see around West Park, to the architect-designed mansions and estates that form the foundation of our local identity. The goal is to strengthen this identity even further. How do we use the technology and the intelligence that we have in design and building in 2026, but maintain the look and feel and heritage of 1926? So this is exactly the question in Los Angeles post-disaster, but similarly a question in thousands of other communities around the country, both old and new, that are struggling to find ways to preserve their heritage while continuing to strengthen it into the future.
So now looking into the future, the Foothill Catalog Foundation has the opportunity to redefine how we look at preservation after disaster in the country. Too often, after flooding, hurricane, or wildfire, we see not only a rapid gentrification of people, but also a gentrification of place. So we believe the catalog home model can provide a solution for high-quality development and preservation even before disaster, ultimately to enable more buildings to be resilient, high quality, attainable, but also, maybe most importantly, to be place-based and people-based for every community. So we thank you for all of your time, for the Lake Forest Preservation Foundation for this opportunity to be here tonight. And so we encourage all of you to keep updated and follow along and join in supporting our movement that hopefully can represent a new era of preservation after disaster. So thank you.